Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the time to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. Hey, welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast YouTube channel. I don't know really what to call it. It's kind of both, but we're going live on LinkedIn. So just the show. Thanks so much for joining. If this is your first time joining ever to see the show, I am here to help you unleash your entrepreneur. So there's lots of things out there that can help you in the how-tos, the processes, the world. We really kind of focus on the things that hold you back, the things that you need to cut the tie from. And that could be people, things you want, the history, the things you feel entitled to, or maybe it's just the excuses you make and all the fears you hold on to. We really focus a lot around the journey of other entrepreneurs, what they did, how they broke through, some practical advice, and learn from them. Today, we're going to be joined by Ryan Baker. Ryan's going to introduce himself. Great guy. Listen, he's done this a few things, and through a little bit of relationships, faith, and just good business practices has helped really kind of get over self-doubt and earn six figures multiple times in 30 days. So this story is awesome. You got to listen to his journey. I have one call to action. It's actually two, but it's one and the same based on how you consume this. If you like the podcast, 5-star it, please. Apple, Spotify means so much for the audience and for the community and the guests. It helps drive their message and for people to learn. And also go to youtube.com at Never Been Promoted. This is my main call to action. Give a subscribe. And if you don't like something or you want to see more of something, just hit me on LinkedIn. I'll put my link up there later at Thomas Helfrich. And I'll actually listen to you and reply and see how we can improve the show. Thanks so much. This is your first time. I hope it's the first of many. And if you've been here before, it's time to get going. Go meet Ryan. Ryan, working a green screen. I was hoping maybe you'd put like something huge back there, like a dinosaur, something no one ever does. They never put dinosaurs in the background.
It's behind the green screen.
Oh, right, of course. Ryan, thank you so much. Les, I've talked a few times. Please do just a brief introduction to you, your kind of organization, and we're going to dive into some of the things you've learned. But thanks so much for joining today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. So I'm Ryan Baker. I'm the founder of Kingly Consulting, consulting firm that helps digital marketing agencies increase revenue from their PPC service, or just start one. A lot of times I'll work with SEO companies. So I've been doing this for 8 years, roughly. And I've worked with like 25-ish agencies, taking them like anywhere from like startup agencies to $15 million agencies. And I've consulted with and also worked in many agencies. I've been an account manager, a sales and strategy rep. I've been an ad manager, a paid search director, director of client services, vice president. I've been a coach, a trainer, of course, own my own agency, and then the consulting. It's been a journey. So that's kind of in a nutshell without getting too far into the weeds.
This is me in a nutshell. Remember that from Austin Powers? No, sorry.
Yes.
It's his humor. I'm like, I got it. And some people are like, this is so dumb. I'm thinking, I'm never telling a joke in your presence ever.
Right. Yeah.
You're also where one of the best TV shows is allegedly filmed out of, which is Ozark.
Yeah, they're filmed out of Georgia, but I do live in Ozark, Missouri, which is where everybody's like, oh yeah, you're like the drugs and the shooting people and stuff. I'm like, that doesn't happen nearly as much as the TV would have you think, but it's actually a very quiet place.
Yeah.
A lot of churches and banks and stuff. So kind of boring, but beautiful. Great place.
It's funny. So I'm from St. Louis originally. I spent plenty of time down in the Ozark area. And I live in Atlanta now where they film that thing. I think in Lake Allatoona is where they do that. And that it's not Lake of the Ozarks, because in Lake Allatoona, they have the markers for how deep the water is, because it fluctuates. In Ozark, it doesn't move ever. Like it's the same height all the time. So that's not the lake just by that alone. And we don't have Georgia pines in Missouri.
That's true. Sad day. But
that's right. The house does look similar to most houses. Tell me about you a little bit though. So set this up, because I know like a lot of your stuff's based on your growth, and other things you've done is based on faith and relationships and family. Can you give us your backstory just to set this up, because it really is like your story coming up, and I know I'm teasing it out there for anyone who's watching, but you got to understand the foundation first. So I'm gonna put you in solo mode and take a few minutes to talk about brag about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, well, goodness. Okay, so it's been a wild journey of entrepreneurship. I back, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I've always kind of had that mindset of like, I want freedom. I want to go out and kind of do my own thing, but I didn't really know how to do it. I've struggled with like ingenuity and coming up with ideas on my own. So I would just like start collecting ideas from other people, and I would go through and listen to podcasts, and I'd listen to audiobooks, and I'd read books, and I'd go out and I'd like watch interviews with people. And I had initially been like really focused on music. I wanted to compose film scores. So I set this goal for myself. It was like, hey, it's January. I haven't taken any steps toward composing. So like I'm going to get a contract before October 15th, which is my birthday. And I was like, I'm going to get a paid gig consulting or composing for a film. And so I hadn't even finished a piece of music at this point. I was like, I've got to set a goal, and I've got to make something happen. So I started writing music, and I started meeting people, and just learning and just consuming all this information. And then by the time October rolled around, I had met like every filmmaker in the area, and got a paid gig to score a film. So I did that. I was working in coffee shops at the time, and I scored 60 minutes of music for this film, got paid, and was just like, yeah, this isn't it. I love music, but if I don't keep it as a hobby and a passion, then I will just like kick it to the curb and get sick of it and like, just give up. So I also didn't really have the chops for it, which is kind of important. So I decided, okay, like I'm going to do something else. I had been listening to a bunch of books and podcasts and reading blog articles and all these things on running an online business. And I was like, that sounds like the life for me. Like you can just, work from anywhere, do whatever you want, help people solve problems. And so I was like, all these things sound appealing. So I started kind of learning more, and the more I got into it, the more I was like, oh, digital marketing, like this part of it really resonates with me. So I had a buddy working in a web design agency. I got a job with him. They were like, hey, dial for dollars. And that wasn't really my thing. So I did that for a few months, but I really started writing content. And that content kind of helped them increase their organic rankings. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But, it wasn't really paying the bills as it needed to. So I had another friend / acquaintance that had their own agency, and it was a bit bigger, and they focused on Google ads. I was like, okay, let's move over here. They were hiring. I was like, let's learn some of this. So I got into that agency as an account manager, or kind of client facing role. Managing the projects and communication and reporting and all that fun stuff, and really just started learning, and I learned a lot of ways to run an agency successfully, a lot of the little things that really work. They're an amazing agency. They went from like 1.5 million to 10 plus million in 5 years. They were on the Inc. 5000 list several times, and I learned a ton from them. And a few things, not to do. Everybody's got their pros and cons. And so I kind of took what I learned there and went out and started consulting with other agencies, in addition to all of the other things that I had learned about digital marketing, direct response, branding, like just a wide gambit. Because a lot of times knowledge is very focused. And if you start something, you have your blinders up so you can focus on that. So consulting with agencies, I was able to kind of bring this holistic approach and help them understand how to kind of better run their agency. So over the years, started working with these agencies, and then something would happen. I would end up taking a job. I'd be like, hey, volatile client load, something like that. I can't make this work. I'd take a job. So I got offered good positions, paid search director, like, yeah, I'll take that. VP, okay, yeah, that's great. And then inevitably something would happen within, a year or two or a couple of years, sometimes a few months. And I'd be like, let's get back out and start my own thing again. And so I did this 3-4 times, and I was in financial turmoil, and had to make 6 figures or I wouldn't be able to pay the bills. I started growing my family. I've got a wife, and we now have 5 kids. And every time we had a kid, there would be one of these tumultuous things.
You heard that. 5 children, and he didn't steal all of them. He made them. It's you participated in making them. Let's be clear. We
I made my contributions. So yeah, every time we had another kid, something like this would happen. I'd start a new job. I'd be under all this stress, and I'd be like, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have taken this job. I should have just like continued and hired some help and yada yada.
And,
So
and in your background, and just because you said it a little bit in the back, you're like, I don't want to make money for other people. Like do you have this driver? Like, I really don't want to be here. I like, you're excited because you get a paycheck, and as soon as the normalcy of that comes in, you're like, your poor wife. I listen, my wife and your wife, like,
right,
hang out and be like, these two guys, I swear to God, like, can they not just keep a job? And the answer is no, we can't.
Yeah. Yep, she's been amazing. That last time, actually, she made me promise to never take a job again. It was like the third or fourth time that I had restarted everything, and she's like, "Hey, I will support you leaving this agency." And I was like part of the core leadership. I was a director of client services, and they were like, paying me more than what they should have paid me because they liked what I had done, and they were like, "Hey, we know that we need to secure this guy." But it was just like they weren't listening to anything that I was telling them, and they were like, "Yeah, I know that's from your experience, but like this is what we're doing." I'm like, "Okay, well, defeats the purpose." So it basically, she was like, "Okay, you can leave, but you can't ever do this again." Like,
exactly, because then you're sitting on two chairs, and I don't mean to interrupt your story, but I think as we get into this will start doing this. I don't even interrupt it, but which negates everything. Interrupt it. I do this because it's dear to, because I felt this, and you internally can handle it. Everyone else around you's like, they don't have the risk profile that they don't understand it, and you can't articulate it. It's just a feeling, and I know I'm probably speaking for you, but your poor family, like your wife in general, God bless her for like literally showing it, but also having the knowledge to say to you what you needed to hear, which is, I support you, but you can't sit on two chairs. So stop trying to and go make it work. And so you're happy, and I can at least count that I know you're 100% focused on something. And I assume the conversation's something like that, because otherwise you probably wouldn't be married, right?
Well, yeah, my wife is very long suffering, and she's very wise. One of the few times that I've listened to her the first time was that, and so I after leaving the last agency, I've not looked back, and I committed. I'm like, okay, I am going to start like actually focusing on making this happen, and I'm going to start hiring the help I need when I get to that point, instead of being like, oh, it's too much. And it has been worth it. It's paid off, sure.
So talk about, so you launched how long have you been doing this now for with Kingsley Consulting?
Yeah, Kingsley Consulting started in 2017, kind of September, so toward the end, and I've kept it on like doing side things, as with every job I've taken. But I've always kind of, when I restarted, I never like launched a new business or anything. It was always like, okay, let's turn this back on and get it back up and running.
So talk about this journey. So getting to six figures in 30 days. So it's not making 100K. It's getting where you're making 10,000 a month or 8, 9. It's getting it up and going. So talk about that, because then I want to talk about how you stack or how you go to glide mode, because that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
So you talk about how you stack, how you got it going so fast again.
Yeah. So basically every time it kind of got a little bit worse. Initially it was like, okay, if I can just make, 8,000 or 9,000 a month, that'll be enough. And I've got to get like some big contracts for that. And then, as time went on, it was like, okay, I better make 10, okay, actually I should probably make like 11 or 12, and so, basically one of the most important lessons I learned from all this was the value of relationships and leveraging connections. And the initial thought, I was like, okay, I better start like cold calling and direct messaging and like sending out all this stuff. And I need to, do all this marketing and advertising, but I didn't really have the capital for that because I had, no additional money. I was kind of making ends meet, but I wasn't like putting aside this huge nest egg or anything. So I was like, okay, I'd reach out to past agencies I'd helped, or I'd reach out to, friends I had in business, and I'd be like, hey, do you know anybody? Like, hey, I'm helping agencies, and one of the easy ways in for me was white label ad management. So I know a lot of agencies, depending on the time of the season, the economy and all that, they have one of two problems. Generally, they're either like, have no acquisition, like they need more clients, or they have too many clients, they can't find good help. And not being able to find good help has been the issue. It's been a big issue for the last 5+ years. More so than like, hey, I've got clients, but like I want to start this new service. A lot of people are doing Google ads, but not a whole lot of them are doing it in a way that is profitable, and not a lot of them are doing it in a way that they can really scale. And then part of the issue is that with the scaling is that they can't find good help. So they can sell to their existing clients if they're like SEO or web design or social or whatever, but they don't know how to sell. They don't know like who to hire or how to hire the right people. And so I would come in and I would either just run the ads for them as kind of a quick foot in the door to get, like if they've got 10, 20 clients, that's a decent chunk right there. And even like underselling myself, bidding too low, they could still resell the services and I could still get a good chunk of money. So I definitely like undersold myself several times to get, $4,000 or $5,000 a month contract. Or, I would pick up some clients that I just kept for years. Like I've had a couple clients that I've had for just, 4, 5, 6 years, and they just stay with me. They're direct clients. So it's like, I'm not doing a white label. They're working with me as their like, core agency. And so I will just, that's like a consistent, okay, I have like 1,000 a month or, 1,500 a month. So I'll just continue to build on that. And now I only need, another 10 grand this month. So basically, as people would reach out, they'd be like, oh yeah, I knew that, you did a great job for me. Here's this person, or, hey, here's this person. And so like those connections, sometimes it would be like the grace of God, like, hey, here's on a silver platter, this exact situation that you need. It's like, here's an agency with, 100+ accounts and they need you to manage 20 of them. It's like, okay, that's a pretty decent chunk, So a lot of it just worked out from having helped so many people over the years.
Right. So just to kind of distill it, right?
Yeah.
You went to your warm list. So if you're from something and you're starting your business, a lot of people start businesses from something they came from. You got to get comfortable quickly of getting through that warm list. And it's sometimes you don't even need the offer. You could be like, hey, I'm in the space. What do you think I'm thinking of this. How does that land on how your interpretation of what I was? And you can ask your warm audience, and then at least they don't feel like you're pushing them, and they also feel like they're, you might learn something about what you should be offering. Like, hey, you know what you were really good at was this, and this, and we really liked you for that. That should become because that's what they're going to refer you for. Yeah. And you make a good point. Like sometimes in the early days, you definitely undervalue yourself to get the clients to learn a little bit, because you're not going to be as good as you are 6 months, a year, or 2 years from now. And so you do that. And I know we did it the same way. I know some of the plans that maybe cost $3,000 or $4,000 a month now, we were doing for like $600.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh gosh, I'm losing on this. So we had to quickly get away from that.
Yeah.
But you need to do that with it. Now, along this way, though, you've said a few times in the past, like, of how faith has been a big piece of this. And in the last chapter of my book is about faith, is that, and not, listen, anybody who's not into that, like, don't leave. Just listen to this. Sometimes you get these kind of bigger senses of purpose or meaning, and they help you carry through when you need that resilience. And that's not religion. That's just having faith in something bigger than you. And it could be in family. It could be in I don't know, Baby Yoda. I don't know. But the point being, talk about your journey a little bit and how it's integrated into your business, or at least to your life for success.
Yeah. Well, so I have been raised in the Christian faith and raised in church, and it was never really like a thing that I questioned. I kind of like went through a mild deconstruction phase, but it was really just like, okay, why am I doing this? And let's, make this faith my own. But I've had a weird relationship with money. I grew up poor. I was never really around a lot of money, and the lot of money that I was around was like, my friend's dad was in commercial real estate or something like that, and there was this just complete and utter lack of understanding of, like, in some Christian denominations, there'll be this perspective that like, oh, money's bad. Like the money is the root of all evil, which it's not. So the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, and you can't worship two masters. But as I made money the goal, I would kind of like run into problems. And as I took my mind off of money and tried to kind of get my heart right, my serving and loving others, all of a sudden everything would start working out. And it was really interesting to see all of the ways that, like, when I was trying to be in control and make it all about money, it would just not happen. And then as I surrendered, as I kind of gave up, I was like, okay, whatever, I will just serve as well as I can. It just, like, all of these, like I said, silver platter moments would happen, where it's like, hey, here's this massive lead, here's another $6,000 a month client, here's another $5,000 a month client, and it just, doing the right things consistently over time, and having your heart in the right place, your mind in the right place, it's way better than trying to take control and force everything.
It's what was a quote I heard? They say money can't buy happiness, and like, clearly you haven't given enough of it away.
Yeah, that's
it's
good.
Like, and money's like, you do need to hit a base because there's a stress level.
Yeah.
And I think the idea is if to find the resilience, you need some kind of consistency, and you have to have a focus, but also this open-mindedness to correct. And the humility piece of that is massive, where you're wrong on so many things still, and yet you're doing so many things right. But understanding where you're not where you think you are being perceived, or accomplishing the value you thought you should, you got to keep reflecting that. And I think if you're using money as the measure of your success, it's a bad metric. It's like focusing on weight loss when really what you want to lose is fat.
Yeah.
And because if you focus on money, then you get ahead that you're like, I know what I'm doing. Clearly it's working, but you might be likely missing even more success that translates beyond a physical thing like money. I don't know if you've experienced that. But it's obvious to me like that's actually becoming much more important than in the long term for things like legacy and how I want my kids to interpret. Maybe take a couple minutes talking about how maybe that's freed you from expectations, I guess, of success.
Yeah, well, so I've always had that kind of, how are others perceiving me? Fear that I want to be liked. I want to be perceived as successful. There's some childhood trauma stuff I won't get into too deep unless that's interesting and we want to do a therapy session. But a lot of that kind of had me
dive in wherever you like. If it's something you think can help somebody who maybe have faced something, you go to a level you like, because and I don't mean once again interrupt you. I think, but it's important that you're people who've had childhood traumas and or just whatever's happened in their life, you're not alone, and you still can succeed. So I think if you want to, absolutely dive in.
Yeah. Well, just to briefly touch on it. So my dad left when I was 3. He was making some decisions that were not beneficial to the family, and or my mother and or really himself. And so he kind of took off, and then he started making a decent bit of money. He's a CFO at a holding company, and like he does pretty well. And my sense of value then was kind of tied to like, okay, I need to make my dad proud. I need to impress him. And like all he would ever really talk about was like, okay, work or politics and things like that. A lot of finances and economic stuff. And so I was like, okay, this is what's important. And we all want to make our dads proud, whether we love them or hate them, or it's just that kind of need. And as a Christian, I see the kind of correlation to God our Father, and so I'm like, okay, this is like a core of our being. And I hadn't really realized this was like a subconscious thing for just my entire life. I was always asking the question, am I good enough yet? Now have I made it? And so the pursuit then of money, I could never really dissociate between anything I was doing and will this make me money? How can I do this? So a lot of the relationships that I was trying to form, if I realized like, okay, this can't make me money, I would just kind of like let it fizzle out or kick it to the curb.
Right.
Which really just was not beneficial to anyone, myself least of all. And it kind of kept a lot of my work experiences shallow, and it made me kind of arrogant in some cases. If I did anything right, it was like, okay, well, yeah, now I'm valuable, or like now I'm moving up in value, and like, oh, I'm making this much money. And so nobody really likes that mentality. What people like
Except
is
yourself.
well, yeah. And even then, like, you don't really, because you maybe consciously you're telling yourself that, but subconsciously
Right.
you're telling yourself like, I'm still a loser. I'm still worthless. I can't do this. And like, they'll find out that I'm a charlatan or whatever, imposter syndrome. And like, so, all of this is going to go away and I won't have any value. So, maybe my having to start over 3 or 4 times is like a necessary like trial, from the Lord to forge me into something better.
Yeah.
And just keep my heart in the right place. Because again, every time I focus on serving, every time, it's like Zig Ziglar said, you can have whatever you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And that really is what it's all about. What does your market want?
It's funny. So the idea of help a billion, make a billion.
Yeah.
So and there's truth to that. So if you can come up with ideas, and that might be extreme, but it points the point. If you help 100,000, you have 100. You can make 100,000.
Yeah.
I think you're onto something with the idea that this internal struggle to prove your worth, of like, oh, am I good enough? And that also translates into this kind of false arrogance and security. That it's interesting as I see younger people be like that.
Mhm.
And as older, it's so embarrassing to realize that the older group in the crowd that was with me, they already knew that. And they just kind of look at it and you'll be dismissed as immature.
Yeah.
Where if you were humble and be like, hey, listen, I'm glad it worked. It's all, and like you're truly sincere with it. And like, hey, what else can we do to improve?
Yeah.
They'll look at that as, holy cow, that's super mature, because you need to be older and see that.
Yeah.
And if you're out there and you're like, this is a lesson like that holds you back, sometimes your own need to be accepted or perceived as smart or successful is just killing you from people who have experienced that say you're not successful in experience because like, you're not mature enough yet to take that next step. And I got to tell you, that's not one you discover till later. And I'm sure I'm still in the same spot right now doing it, but
it's a lifelong lesson. And you always have to be reminded. Because it's always like, okay, it's really easy to slip back into that. And like, as soon as you're comfortable again, it's like, okay, well, I'm good. I'm fine. Like I'm great at this. And maybe you are, but like the term servant leadership is there for a reason. So like, as you gain success and you start like growing a business, if that's your goal, you don't always have to do that. You can be a freelancer and be successful. You can have $5,000 a month and be like thrilled out of your mind. And that's your goal. Like, go for it. Whatever your lifestyle you are trying to design, go for it. And when you've hit your goal, if you want to stop, just the need to grow and do more and more and more, I think is empty. It's ridiculous.
It's a result though of the other things. And I still struggle with it. Everyone does.
Oh, yeah.
And listen, there's always exceptions to the rule, but I think part of the word success is in your expectations, obviously,
right,
and your capabilities. So here's the reality: not everyone on the planet can be an Elon Musk,
right,
or an Alex Hormozy, or anybody else. If that is your standard, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
However, if you look about what you could make, or you in the W-2 working for somebody else, where someone sees your value world, if you can produce that on your own, you're massively successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you can exceed it from a cash standpoint, from a financial, you're really like, wow. That's amazing. But that shouldn't be your only measure of success. Because if you make, let's say, 20% less, but you freed up 60% more time to be with family or enjoy things you like or develop other mind expanding things, that is massively success. And I don't want to say happy, but if you get to the point where you just feel healthier, you feel more alive, you have this the only one wishes, I wish I made a little bit more, but I have enough.
Yeah.
Then you can do something about that. You can, but that's to me success. Have you in the past, I know you said this, but maybe what's been the one success metric that you just cannot get past right now still?
Oh goodness. Well, so I'm always beating myself up over not being the intentional like dad or husband that I want to be. Of taking my mind off of work when I'm not at work, So like boundaries, probably the big success metric right now. But I still like, I've got that entrepreneurial drive to like, oh, I want to start this side project, and oh, I want to do this, and I've got these big goals for Kingly Consulting, and then I have lots of like little goals for side things that I'd like to build up along with it, and hire a team and have this kind of run with less direct input, and it's hard to juggle all of those things and also family. And I think work-life balance is a myth. I've written about this a lot. And I think that work is part of life, but it is in part, it's a means to an end, because, work, like the money you make should fuel the other stuff that the other parts of life, just you take care of your family, go do fun stuff together, help others, support, give, and solve problems for people. That's what we do as entrepreneurs. But the other side of it is like, I love work. I love this, and it's a passion. And so the more you do it, the more it kind of fuels you to do more. And so I think the balance part of it is just, okay, I want to be intentional about how I am managing my relationship. Am I spending enough time with my wife? Am I, taking her on dates more than once or twice a year, which, having 5 kids in, less than 10 years, it's tricky to find the dates. Yeah, no, we're not. But
still struggling.
Found a great sitter, and we're on our way. So, that, like, just setting goals, not just for business, but also like, okay, for my relationship with my wife, my time with my kids. Okay, I want to make sure that I'm taking each one of them out individually, and that I'm like also spending time with them all together, and that we're doing something fun. And then like on the weekends, we'll go to a park, or in the evening, if it's nice, like we'll go out for a drive or something, just whatever we can do at this phase of our life. And then as we get older, okay, so you've got your 1, 5, and 10 year goals is in your business. How about for your family? Like, okay, within 1 year, I want to make sure that I take them to like the St. Louis Zoo or something. In 5 years, our youngest will be 5. So, we'll be able to do more fun things then. So like, let's fly somewhere, or like, let's take a road trip to some of the states out west or something. 10 years. Okay, let's go to Europe. Let's, take the family to Oceania and visit New Zealand and Australia. And like, let's do some fun stuff, and let's like set some goals. But in the interim, like, let me make sure I'm spending like at least, at half an hour, whatever, with my kids, paying attention to them, showing them that I love and value them, so that as they grow up, we have that relationship to do all the fun things.
It matters then, right? So they know you're, and you're right. You can't just plan for the Disney dad moments, right?
Right.
And I get it. And sometimes, because it's almost, I think addiction is probably the better word. When what you're doing doesn't feel like work, it's like, I really like it. It's like almost gamification, right? So if you're playing, if you're somebody who can get hooked in a game, entrepreneurship might be for you, because it's quite addictive at times and frustrating, just like a game. But that success metric is one that you discover. Sometimes it hits you in the face, where your relationship is not as good as you thought it was, and you're like, oh, and then you're like, you're 2 years behind a curveball now. You're like, I'm sorry about that, and you're digging yourself out of a hole, and then when you repeat some of the same behaviors, you're right back where you are. I might maybe speaking from experience myself.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a super common problem to make it all about work, and especially like if you are kind of that, like I addicted to progress just in general. So like, yes, video games, lots of fun. I stream on Tuesday nights with a buddy of mine. Like we have that kind of standing thing. I'm in several D&D groups, but like the work thing, like it actually has real life repercussions. Like, okay, if I make progress in this, I make more money, like, which lets me do that stuff, or lets me, like buy a board game to play with the kids, like, or just whatever. Like we can get some yard games and spend more time outside. So like there's a lot of joy that comes from that addiction, but if you don't keep it in check, then it just negates the ability to enjoy all of the stuff that you're in theory doing it for.
Right. I'm one who believes moderation is a made up word.
Yeah. Yeah. I have yet to really find the gauge on that moderation thing and whatever lever controls it. So.
Yeah. Right. It doesn't exist. That's why it's all, that's the part of the matrix that's broken, this word moderation. Let's get into the weeds a little bit. So your expertise is in pay-per-click, or campaigns. Maybe you explain it. Give us the do's and don'ts. I don't understand the space because, my agency focuses on strategy and more the business consulting and how to use LinkedIn for social growth, right? We don't do any ads, though I'd love to hear it from LinkedIn, your take upon it, but also just PPC in general. So you want to kind of go through your mantra and how you think about that, that problem that marketing agencies face?
Yeah. So, I mean, strategy is a big issue with marketing agencies because a lot of times they'll focus like, okay, I provide a service to these clients, and they'll focus on managing the service. They don't really look at it from like the comprehensive growth strategy of the business. They're looking at it from the standpoint of like, okay, this platform, Google Ads is doing well, or like SEO, you're getting more organic traffic, so you get more leads. It's like, that's great. How does it fit into the whole picture? So from one standpoint, one of the ways that I help agencies is with that strategy piece and understanding, okay, how do you work? Like, how do you develop a channel mix strategy if you offer multiple services? And if not, how do you make that one service you provide work better as part of the whole instead of viewing it as an isolated channel? And so that kind of strategy piece, usually that's like an agency-wide training that sometimes it's an ongoing thing with coaching, and other times it's like, hey, let me come in and do a couple talks. Then helping them, like with Google Ads in particular, it's kind of one of those revenue streams that sometimes people are doing it as like a side thing. Like I mentioned earlier, SEO agencies, web design agencies, they're like, oh, people ask for Google Ads, so I'll set up some campaigns for them. Well, they don't always know what they're doing, and it's not always actually like helpful. Sometimes it just spends money. So what I do is I help them make that a profit center. And in addition to actually serving their clients better, they can kind of command better rates and turn it into something that actually generates revenue for their agency, and they can build teams around it, or hire a white label or get a freelancer or a VA, whatever. I help with all that kind of hiring, understanding, like designing the roles.
I think also too, this is a really important point.
Yeah.
You get out of your swim lane, or even just out of the pool, and you start offering things you don't really do well, it really hurts your original value proposition, even if you're doing it just as well.
Yeah.
Because you're inviting in doubt, if you will. So I think finding a partner to help you do stuff, I've been guilty of it. We've taken on projects that we certainly shouldn't have, and it failed and ruined the relationship of a customer.
Yeah.
But now I'm mostly like, hey, this is an outside agency. We bring them in, and the people that are customers are appreciative of that because they don't have to go find them, and they know you're managing them. So I think that's a really important part of strategy wise. When campaigns don't work, you might have hired your marketer who doesn't really know it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And that's actually the first consulting client that I ever had. They were an SEO agency, did some web design, and they were fantastic at that. They had a lot of clients that were getting screwed over in PPC by other agencies, and they were like, hey, come over, we'll help you. They like barely charged them anything. And they had hired somebody with 10 years experience. So they're like, okay, she'll take care of them. Well, I came in, I started auditing accounts, and I was like, she's not taking care of them. Like she's doing stuff that worked 10 years ago, but like right now, this is not how accounts should be managed. And of course, now 8 years later, like it's a completely different landscape again. But I realized that, and I was like, hey, we've got to hire somebody new. We've got to increase your rates so that the clients see the value of it, and then also you can make money from this so that you can support a team. So we came in, we hired somebody new. He had like 1 year experience, but he was a unicorn. Like we made a couple tries. Like I learned some lessons. It was rough, but we found somebody in who's just amazing. He's still with him. It's been 7 years now, and we we developed processes to kind of turn this into an intentional service instead of like, I don't know, like fix it. I did some education and training, coaching with the owner of the agency so that he knew enough that he could kind of talk about it, whether I was there or not, and then know what to look at with his team. But most of my work was like, okay, let me act as like fractional paid search director and help you design strategy, help make sure you've got the processes, the audit schedules and the day-to-day optimizations and everything. Make sure, I can help you sell initially, and then that process over the years, he got to the point that he could sell it himself because he knew enough about like how it worked and what to talk about, how to answer questions.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like grew into this thing, but initially without the right people, without the processes, without an understanding of what he was selling and how it worked with SEO and web design, it was really just kind of like he was floundering. But he had the wherewithal to recognize that and the humility to ask for help, which was great.
Tying it back, just conscious of time too. I want to clearly for you. You've done a bunch of restarts and you've learned from each one, as you talked about. But it's been a combination of warm and cold, and it's kind of like you go warm, you go develop that, but you got to get out there and do your own pay-per-click and do that. It's not where you start because it's expensive, and you need to learn a little. So I think the kind of takeaway from today is you can get to 10K a month, 9K a month pretty quickly through your old network if you truly have a skill, and if you don't, like you discovered it. You discovered it through training, through going to get a job. I'm one who says like, oh, quit your job, do this. You do need to get some skills. And if you don't have them, you might want to go work for somebody with the intent that I'd like to go do this myself, or discover even better, something you don't want to do. There's like the greatest thing in the world when you discover, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. I'm so glad I didn't go to school for it. Awesome feeling. So I appreciate you sharing all that. So what I want to is like, as we kind of say goodbye here, who is it that should get a hold of you? How do they do that? And where should they do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's two people that should get a hold of me. One, marketing agencies that are not offering Google ads or that are offering Google ads kind of like as a side, afterthought, but they want it to be a profit center. I can fully install the Google Ads service for you, including like hiring, training, setting up processes, helping to sell your existing clients, like all those things. If you need white label services, we do that. And then the other would be those who are running Google Ads, but they maybe have a team, they don't have leadership. So I do fractional paid search direction. That's kind of basically I can come in, I can help set strategy, I can help audit accounts and improve your processes, train and coach your existing ad managers and help them produce the best results possible. And some of that includes like training your account managers or the client-facing team how to communicate the results you're getting so that you can like stop losing clients from bad reporting. So those are the two kind of main groups that should reach out.
I appreciate it. Check out his stuff at Kingly Consulting. Connect to them on LinkedIn. All that's in the show notes. Ryan, thanks so much for coming on today. I appreciate it. I always love talking to you. Like you have such a great story, and your business is awesome. And it's all out of Ozark. So if you're small town, you think you got to move to a big town, you don't. You can do it from anywhere.
Yeah,
and I mean it. Ozark is anywhere. It's
true. It's true.
It's not like it is in the movies, people. There is gunfire, but it's usually at an animal.
It's true. Animals or targets. So, or
there's a meth problem down there, but that's a little further out. People sometimes shoot at ghosts. Yes, or other meth heads. But thank you, Ryan, so much. I appreciate you coming on today. I really do.
Thomas, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Hang out. I'll be right back. Let me say goodbye. Listen, guys, thank you so much. Check out Kingly Consulting. Ryan is actually a great person if you get to know him a little bit. And I just start with some questions to him if you have about how he grew his business and his kind of his intersection of life and what he does. So he's a good person to start with if you're on some type of marketing need journey around specifically pay-to-click ads. He knows the space very well. I thank you for making this point. If this was your first time and you got to hear it, great. I hope you come back, and I hope you guys follow the YouTube channel at Never Been Promoted. And if you like the podcast, give it a great rating. Till we meet again, get out there, cut the tie to all that stuff that's holding you back, and go unleash your entrepreneur. Thanks for listening.